Welcome back to the deep dive. You've shared your sources, we stacked them up, and today we're tackling something really critical for the U.S. defense sector. It's the governance and readiness requirements for the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification. You probably know it as CMMC. Our mission today, a deep dive into this whole ecosystem. We want to give you a quick, structured grasp of who is setting the rules and, maybe more importantly, how contractors can actually meet them and why does this matter so much. Well, simply put, the Department of Defense, the DoD, they created CMMC to seriously strengthen cybersecurity across their entire supply chain. This applies to pretty much every contractor handling controlled and classified information, or CUI. And the sources we looked at are crystal clear on this. Compliance isn't just a good idea. It's not a recommendation. It is a non-negotiable prerequisite if you want to be eligible for future DoD contracts. That's a huge shift.
Oh, it's absolutely a systemic overhaul. We're really moving beyond that old way of doing things where contractors could, basically just write a letter saying, trust us, we're secure. The DoD realized that kind of self-attestation just wasn't working. It wasn't protecting sensitive national security data. So CMMC is all about verified security, security proven by independent assessors. And our sources, they really break this new world down into two main interdependent components. First, you've got the central governance body. They provide the authority, the oversight. That's the Cyber AB. They set the standards, they accredit the players, ensure integrity. Second, you have the readiness solutions. These are the tools, the professional guidance that contractors use to actually meet those high standards efficiently. We'll be looking specifically at CyberComply today, which kind of represents that practical, often automated pathway to getting ready.
Okay, right. Let's unpack this then. Starting with that central authority, the group that sort of holds the whole system together and ensures that trust is verifiable, the Cyber AB.
Exactly. When we talk governance, the Cyber AB is it. Think of them as the centralized nonprofit that acts as the essential regulatory backbone for CMMC. Legally, their name is the CMMC Accreditation Body, CMMC AB, and they are the only authorized body, the only one responsible for accrediting, managing, and overseeing the entire CMMC assessment process. And that's across the whole defense industrial base, the DIB. Huge undertaking. This structure is really essential to maintain consistency.
Okay, I get why we needed to move away from just trusting companies based on their word, but this structure needing independent verification, you mentioned C3PAOs doing the audits, that sounds like it could get really expensive, right? And maybe add a lot of bureaucracy, especially for the smaller guys, the medium-sized businesses in the DIB. How does the Cyber AB's setup make sure that the cost of compliance doesn't just, price innovative companies out of doing business with the DoD?
That's a really, really important question. And it gets right to the heart of the challenge. Building security without, crushing the innovation that the DoD needs. The Cyber AB's structure is actually designed to address efficiency and integrity, partly through that oversight role. They're trying to standardize the auditing process itself. Standardization should, in theory, help reduce some of those variable costs and maybe some of the friction in the audits over time. So look at their key functions. First, there's accreditation and oversight. They don't just approve the C3PAOs, those are the official third-party auditors who do the actual certification assessment. They also enforce really strict conflict of interest policies. This is critical. The organization that helps you prepare for your audit cannot be the same one that performs the audit. That separation of duties is probably the main mechanism for guaranteeing impartiality and integrity in the results.
Okay, so the C3PAO is like the referee in the final game. Makes sense. But who are the coaches then? Who helps companies get ready to face that referee?
That's their second big function, registration and training. The Cyber AB registers and manages this whole ecosystem of RPOs, registered provider organizations, and RPS registered practitioners. These are the folks who are specifically trained in the CMMC framework. They act as the preparation consultants. The coaches, like you said, they help organizations figure out the scope, how to implement controls, all that prep work. But again, they cannot perform the final audit. It creates a regulated, standardized market for help. And their final function is quality assurance. They enforce standards, ethics codes, training requirements for every single person, every organization involved in this. So if an RPO gives bad advice, or maybe a C3PO does a sloppy audit, the Cyber AB is the body that holds them accountable. They can actually revoke their accreditation.
Right, accountability. And that means transparency for the contractors, too. The sources pointed out that this governance structure ensures public trust through its central resource. So if you're a defense contractor listening right now, you don't have to guess who's legit. The Cyber AB Marketplace, you can find it at cyberab.org. That's the official place. It's a verifiable hub where you can immediately check if your chosen C3PAO or RPO or RP is officially recognized, certified, and current. Gives you some baseline trustworthiness before you even spend a dime. Okay, so the Cyber AB gives us the blueprint, the non-negotiable standard, and the accredited referees. Got it. But standards can be pretty scary if you don't have the tools to meet them. If the governance creates this high bar of verifiable security, then these readiness solutions must provide the structured, manageable path to actually get there, which is exactly why we need to shift gears now and look at how platforms like CyberComply are bridging that really complex gap between strict policy and, the practical day-to-day work for the contractor.
Yeah, this is absolutely where the rubber meets the road. Think about CMMC Level 2. It requires implementing 110 separate security controls. These are detailed in NIST 800-171. Now imagine you're a small manufacturing company. Maybe you primarily make parts, not software. Navigating that framework, it's nearly impossible without specialized, structured help. So CyberComply, which is offered by Armada Cyber Defense LLC, they step into this space with sort of a dual role. They act as both a consulting firm, so they provide that strategic human guidance, and as a CMMC-focused GRC platform. GRC, that's governance, risk, and compliance. What's really interesting here, I think, is how they take that complex, high-level policy from the DoD, and they break it down into manageable, often automated technical tasks. That significantly reduces the compliance burden.
And reducing that burden is absolutely key, isn't it? Especially for tackling that cost and time barrier we were just talking about. Let's maybe focus on the technology side first. Our sources highlighted some key tools they offer designed to help with self-assessment before you get to that formal, potentially expensive audit. They mentioned CyberGap. It's a free CMMC Level 1 and Level 2 self-assessment tool. Why is a self-assessment tool like that so important?
It's basically the diagnostic phase. Think of it maybe like a pre-flight checklist that you really have to perform before you take off. Contractors working for the DoD are already required to submit their current status, it's often called their SPRS score, into the DoD Supplier Risk Performance System. That SPRS score is essentially a calculated measure of how many controls you've implemented based on your own assessment. Before CMMC really started rolling out, let's be honest, many companies treated this score pretty casually. Now, if you're seeking certification, you absolutely need to know exactly where you stand. So using a tool like CyberGap lets a contractor check their current SPRS score, gauge their overall readiness, but without the immediate pressure or the cost of bringing in a formal C3PAO auditor right away. You find your gaps first, prioritize fixing them, and then you budget for the audit when you actually feel confident you're ready.
Okay, knowing your gaps is one thing, but proving you fix them, dealing with all the documentation, that sounds like where a lot of companies might get bogged down. We're talking about things like the System Security Plan, the SSP, and the Plan of Action and milestones, the POA&M. How does automation help with these potentially massive requirements?
Right. This is where automation shifts from being just convenient to being absolutely essential for many organizations.
Right.
The SSP isn't just a document you write once. It's supposed to be a deep, detailed map showing how your organization implements all 110 of those CMMC controls. You have to specify the system, its scope, the boundaries, the technical tools you use to secure CUI. If you try to manage that manually, maybe on spreadsheets or static Word docs, it gets outdated almost instantly when your system changes.
And the POA&M, that sounds like the real danger zone, right? The list of things you haven't fixed yet.
Exactly. The POA&M is your public remediation checklist, essentially. It lists every single control you have not yet fully implemented. It assigns responsibility to someone, and it sets a deadline for getting it done. If you miss a deadline on a control listed in your POA&M, that immediately puts you at risk of noncompliance. It can seriously jeopardize your contracts. So CyberComply's platform, it automates generating and crucially maintaining both the SSP and the POA&M. It links them directly to the control status within the system itself. This changes these massive documents from being sort of static manual audit risks into becoming live, trackable project management tools.
And that continuous management must tie into tracking all those controls, right? It's not enough to be compliant just on the day of the audit. You have to show you're doing it consistently. How does the platform help companies manage, 110 separate requirements every single day?
It provides that centralized evidence repository that the auditors are absolutely going to demand. The platform enables continuous monitoring and tracking for all 110 CMMC controls. This means assigning specific responsibility for each control, like who owns the multi-factor authentication policy, and then maintaining the required evidence logs, screenshots, policy documents, whatever's needed to satisfy the C3PAO during that formal assessment. Honestly, the ability to just pull up verifiable evidence instantly, that's what fundamentally shortens the audit time and, frankly, reduces a ton of stress. It's the huge difference between scrambling through old file servers hoping to find a policy document from last year versus just pulling up a live dashboard that proves you're doing what you say you're doing.
That technology framework sounds powerful, definitely. But compliance often involves these really complex strategic decisions too, right? Things that software alone probably can't make, like defining your system boundaries and scope, figuring out exactly which systems handle CUI and which ones don't. That sounds like maybe the most confusing part for companies new to this.
That's absolutely right, and it's precisely why the human element, that expert guidance, is still vital. CyberComply supplements its automation with advisory support. They provide guidance from their own team of registered practitioners and CMMC-trained consultants, defining that scope and boundary correctly. That is usually the first and potentially most costly mistake companies make, because if you scope it wrong, maybe too broadly, you can end up needing to audit systems that don't even handle CUI, which just needlessly ramps up complexity and cost. So the consultants work alongside the GRC platform. They help ensure the contractor has appropriately and defensively limited the CUI environment. This streamlines the whole preparation phase and helps make sure they only present the necessary systems and evidence to the C3PAO for the formal assessment.
So when we connect all these dots, link it back to the bigger picture, you really see this shared ecosystem goal emerging. The cyber AB on one side and readiness solutions like CyberComply on the other. They're both ultimately committed to strengthening the cybersecurity posture of the entire defense industrial base. One provides the structure and the integrity for the assessment process itself.
Exactly. And the other provides the structured, efficient pathway to actually pass that assessment. That's the key takeaway for you, the listener. The Cyber AB defines the strict ethical rules. They maintain the accreditation structure. They certify the auditors, the referees. Then CyberComply, through its platform and its professional support, provides the pass, the automation, and those essential tools to meet the rules effectively. It helps reduce the manual labor and, crucially, that high risk of failing the audit.
And the ultimate outcome of this whole mandated structure, combining that robust governance from the Cyber AB with streamlined readiness tools, it seems pretty clear. Defense contractors should be able to reduce their overall preparation costs, significantly shorten their prep time, and then approach their formal C3PAO assessments with much more confidence. Because they've been using structured, evidence-based tools instead of relying on, chaotic manual processes. That integrity in the ecosystem is exactly what the DoD needs to secure the nation's supply chain.
Yeah, and this brings up a really important question for you to think about as you wrap up this deep dive. Beyond just meeting the mandatory DoD requirement, which you have to do if you are a defense contractor, think about this. How much money, time, and valuable staff energy can actually be saved by using structured governance platforms and automation tools that provide instant evidence on demand? Compare that to the inherently chaotic, usually slow, and definitely expensive process of trying to achieve these complex CMMC requirements through manual documentation and guesswork alone. That difference, the delta measured in efficiency and verifiable trust, that I think is the real value proposition of the modern CMMC ecosystem that's being built right now.